I call to order the February 24th, 2014 regular meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education. We welcome everyone and request everyone in the audience to please silence their cell phones and electronic devices. And first, even before the pledge, the board apologizes for being late with this late start, but we're coming out of meetings that began at 4:30 and needed to get some business resolved. But again, we're sorry for our delay and tardiness. Tonight's pledge will be led by the students from Hayes Porter, and they are led by their principal, Nedra Principal, I like that, Nedra McLean. Mike.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I doubt that we've ever heard it better delivered. They didn't even need a microphone. We'll get to talk to them a little bit later. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bates.
Present.
Mrs. Copeland-Dansby.
Present.
Mrs. Hoffman. Mr. Coons.
Present.
Mr. Manera.
Present.
Mr. Nell.
Here.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Witt. And now what we'll do is need a motion to approve the minutes from the special public meeting February 7th, 2014, February 10th, 2014, regular meeting, February 10th, 2014, special public meeting, February 12th, 2014.
I think there was just one error in the February 10th regular meeting in the, the vote for the waiver, for the alcohol waiver. I think they just had your vote wrong, President Bolton.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to correct that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We will make that correction. With that amendment and change and correction, do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Nelms. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved as presented. Mrs. Bates, as Finance Committee Chair, would you please present the February 12th, 2014 committee meeting report?
Yes, it's presented as printed.
Thank you. Mr. Coons, as Chairman of the Student Achievement Committee, would you please present the February 18th committee report?
I present the minutes as written with some special attention to the Welcome to College presentation. We enjoyed a great presentation from an organization called Welcome to College, who we hope to partner with in the future to bring college enrichment is the best way to put it, I think, for our students to help discover more about college opportunities that are out there.
Great, thank you very much. Do board members have any questions about the February 19th, 2014 Committee of the Whole report? All right, seeing none, we need a voice vote to accept the committee reports as written. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? I appreciate it. New business. Our first presentation tonight will be academically focused and presented by Principal Nedra McLean of Hayes Porter School and her compatriots from Hayes Porter. So we welcome Principal McLean and her students. And do we have any Hayes Porter folks or fans out there in the audience? Please wave to us. Staff and parents and sponsors and partners alike, we welcome you and are very happy that you're here. You're a pretty rowdy group back there. I can now see why the students spoke so clearly and so loudly. That's great.
Good evening. My name is Debbie McLean. I am the principal at the Hayes Porter School.
All right.
I've been at Hayes Porter for the past 6 years, and the building edifice was built in 2007. If you look at the slides, these are just some of the pictures of our beautiful building. The beautiful Hayes Porter campus is located in the West End community near downtown Cincinnati. We currently serve about 300 students, most of which are economically challenged, and a number of students come to us with a variety of needs. However, despite these challenges, our students have the awesome potential to excel. because we have a caring and dedicated staff, parents, and a community that's determined that no child be left behind. This is a slide of our Community Learning Center showcase that took place on Saturday, September 28th, showing some of our parents and staff members. Hayes Porter School has one vision, one mission, and one goal, and that is to accelerate student academic performance. We are excited about the gains that we made over the years and enthusiastic about making even greater gains. In 2009-10, we were rated an academic emergency. In 2010-11, we moved to continuous improvement. And in 2011 and 12, we were rated effective. As you can see, the performance index in 2009-10 was 60.8, 2010-11, 70.5, 2011-12, 80.6. In 2012-2013, the state issued a new report card. However, the students made progress in math and reading, and they showed growth in value-added data. The value-added measure looks at how much each student learns in a year and determines if each student made a year's worth of growth. Our overall value-added was rated an A. Our students with disabilities received a B rating, and our lowest 20% in achievement was rated an A. We are doing a lot of wonderful things at Hayes Porter School, but this evening I would like to focus on our tutoring program. So one of the things that we do at Hayes Porter to try to help reach our goal, we try to get each student in grades 1 through 6 a partner with the tutor in order to increase academic performance by providing immediate, intensive, and targeted tutoring. Although our tutoring goal may seem high, at Hayes Porter School, we all know that the mission is what? Possible. The mission is possible. So thanks to our partners, Hayes Porter meets our students' diverse needs while continuing to accelerate academic performance. Some of our Hayes Porter partners are Families Forward, Grad Cincinnati, Macy's, the Voorhees Law Firm, Fifth Third Bank, Beach Acres, the University of Cincinnati, and the Strive Be the Change program. This is a picture of the hallway on our tutoring floor when our tutors enter the building for the tutoring floor. This is what they see. On one side, we have devoted to the Bearcat Wall of Fame. The other side focuses on our school colors, the green and yellow, for our Strive tutors. This is another picture of the hallway on our tutoring floor, where we are welcoming and letting our tutors know that we do appreciate all that they do. The Hayes Porter tutoring program is intentional, it's intensive, it's individualized, it's strategic, accelerated, data-driven, monitored, relationship-oriented, and most of all, it's fun. Our tutoring program is customized to meet the needs of every child. Dashboard and teacher input is used to identify student strengths and weaknesses, and the tutors work with students to help them master previously taught skills. Through our tutoring program, we also emphasize NED. We encourage students to never give up, to encourage others, and to always do your best. One thing that we actually do at Hayes Porter School is we provide an orientation for all of our tutors. So they don't just come in one at a time. We do a group orientation. So I'm going to introduce Ms. Richardson, who is our resource coordinator, and she'll talk a little bit about our orientation.
Hello, I'm Rashad Richardson, and as Ms. McClain said, I'm the resource coordinator at Hayes Porter School, and the lead agency I am employed through is Families Forward. And myself and Nancy Johnson, our reading specialist, we conduct an orientation with all of our volunteer tutors. We have tutors who volunteer through the Strive Network, and we also have tutors who volunteer through the UC Bearcat Buddies program, which is coordinated through Carolyn Toney, who is with Grad Cincinnati. During our orientation, tutors are provided with an overview of the tutoring program, a review of tutoring materials, the tutoring process which tells them where to sign in and sign out, the room location, additional materials, the tutoring log, the procedure for picking students up, and how to address any concerns, etc. The orientation usually takes place in groups and is conducted at the business site. You know, at the Voorhees Law Firm, we have a group of about 24 tutors who volunteer, so we actually make it convenient for them when we go to the site. the University of Cincinnati. And we also make it convenient for them because we take the photos of the tutors on site for their orientation for the volunteer badges. We have Strive who actually collects the background checks, and I take the photos on site, and then we send them over to here to the security department, and then they send us the badges. So the badges are available for the tutors on the day when they begin tutoring. Also, on the tutoring floor, we provide a room where each student have a folder with all the related tutor materials in a stored crate. The students' and tutors' names are listed on a chart and arranged by day and time. With our UC Bearcat buddies and our Strive tutors, we have a list, and students are organized where they come on certain days, and they meet with that tutor each day during that same time each week. We also supply additional tutoring materials such as games, reading materials, other activities, which is all grade level appropriate. Here's some other boards that we have on our tutoring floor, just to kind of welcome our tutors, make them feel welcome and comfortable there. We also provide pictures of our tutors with their tutees. And here are just some slideshows of our tutors with their tutees. We've heard great feedback from the tutors on how they love to be engaged with the students. Sometimes they bring in articles with the students to discuss some reading materials that the students may be interested in. And here's a group photo of one of our last year, our UC Bearcat buddies, along with some of their tutees. I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. McLean.
We actually have a short video, if it will work for us this evening. This is basically just a short clip of the UC Bearcat Buddies tutoring session along with some of the Hayes Porter students. It just shows that the students and the tutors are very engaged, they're focused in on the lesson, and the sessions are always monitored by the grad Cincinnati person, Ms. Tony. Okay. We have another short video by Mr. Andrew Kaplan, who is one of the partners in the Voorhees law firm.
An article in the Enquirer about the Be the Change program, and that they were trying to place 1,000 tutors in the Cincinnati public schools, and she thought I might be interested in that. And I was. I've worked with kids a lot over the years and really enjoyed that. So I came to Hayes Porter because it's very close to my office, and that meant that I knew I could leave the office and be here and park and get into school and start working with a student within 15 minutes on both sides, and then we'd work for about 45 minutes or an hour. And that just worked out really well. A couple of years ago I started, I had a second grade girl, very sweet little girl that I worked with on reading my first year, and I loved it, and I knew I wanted to come back the next year. And then I thought, we've got something like 80 lawyers in our Cincinnati office, and there must be plenty of other lawyers who would want to do the same thing if they knew about the program. So I sent out an email around the office and had an organizational meeting, and 10 of my colleagues joined me, and that was both partners and associates. We had another organizational meeting, and now we're up to something like 22 or 23 tutors. Sixth grade boy who I really liked and really enjoyed working with. I thought we had a good year. We would read the sports page. We would read ESPN magazine, or whatever was of interest, because my student likes sports a lot, so do I. Particularly happy to be at Hayes Porter, which is so welcoming, and everything is so well organized here. Again, thank you for having me, and I look forward to many years of working together.
Mr. Kaplan has also been very instrumental in helping us to recruit other volunteers. 3 years ago when he started, we only had 3 tutors from the Strive program. However, through word of mouth, Mr. Kaplan, other Hayes Porter tutors, we currently now have 24 tutors from Voorhees Law Firm. We have 15 tutors from Fifth Third Bank. We have 20 tutors from other various organizations, and over 65 tutors from the University of Cincinnati. At this time, I would kind of like to highlight one of our awesome third grade students at Hayes Porter School, Nair Dunnorth. In September, Nair his dual score was 259, but in January, his overall score soared to 390. Nair scored 455 on the October 2013 Reading Ohio Achievement Assessment. Nair scored in the advanced category, which is the highest category that you can score in. Nair has worked with various tutors over the past 2 years. We also are involved in something called the CPS Volunteer Tutor Keeping Track Contest, which one of our tutors from Voorhees Law Firm, Mr. Jeff Marks, and his student, Marnell Stewart, what happens, the tutor actually has to go back on their own time, and they log the sessions and the hours that they've spent with the different kids. Each log entry automatically earns a chance to win one of 3 prizes. And on January 24th, 2014, Marnell was awarded a pizza party for his entire class, thanks to Mr. Marks. At this time, I would like to have Nair Dunnorth, Nishia White, and Alexis Duffy just talk to you briefly about their tutoring experience. Nair, you go first.
Hello, my name is Nair, and I'm in the 3rd grade at Hayes Porter School. I like working with volunteer tutors because they help me with my math and reading skills. I am doing better with my classwork and on the state test because of all the great tutors and teachers at Hayes Porter School. I really appreciate the tutors taking time out to work with me and my classmates. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Nashia and I am in the 4th grade at Hayes Porter School. I like working with my UC Breaker buddy and my volunteer tutor because they all help me to become a better student. Sometimes it is hard for me to understand my math problems during my class time, so I am able to ask my UC Breaker buddy specific questions during our sessions. I am doing a better job with my classwork. I am doing a better job with my division problems due to my tutor sessions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexis Duffy and I am in the 6th grade. I am really grateful for having the opportunity to work with volunteer tutors this school year. Due to the extra help, I am doing well in all of my classes. And I was able to pass the test to go to Walnut Hills High School next year. I am really benefiting from people taking the time out to help Hayes Porter students. Thank you.
So as you can see, the possibilities are endless. We are always looking for more tutors. Tutors are always wanted. So if I can have the other Hayes Porter students come over and join us. Hayes Porter School, we would like to welcome you to come out and visit the Hayes Porter School campus, where the mission is possible and the students are safe, respectful, and responsible. Have a marvelous day. We also have little bookmark gifts that we would like to present the board as a little token of our appreciation. Go ahead and pass them out. And then don't forget back here as well. If you would like more information regarding our tutoring program, please feel free to contact Rashard Richardson, our resource coordinator, at 513-363-1099. And I would like to quickly introduce the rest of the Hayes Porter team. We have Christopher Brooks. We have Nancy Johnson, our wonderful reading specialist. We have Nair Dunnorth, Nishia White, Jason Brooks, Ashley Fisher, Alexis Duffy, Mariana McClain, and Ms. Richardson. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments? Yes, Mrs. Danby.
You all are absolutely awesome, and I'm going to use that saying, the mission is possible. I just wanted to personally thank you, Ms. McClain, for your leadership and your work, and you students for doing an awesome job and understanding how important it is to work with your tutor, ask the specific questions that you need help with, and come prepared. And a big thank you to our community partners, because we all know that we couldn't do it without our community partners. So thank you guys for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Well, I think there were many very impressive parts of the presentation. One thing I wanted to focus on was the decorations you guys had. Those little things, I think, really go a long way for our visual learners to just kind of feel inspired by what's going on there. And, I mean, you had a very clean and orderly looking school.
Thank you.
I love it. Thank you.
Now, Mrs. Hoffman.
I wanted to echo what they were saying about, and I think what really struck me with when the students spoke is they're very grateful for their teachers and their tutors, but I think we also want to express our gratitude, because the best teachers and tutors in the world can only do so much, but y'all's attitude that you want to learn, that is what's going to help you throughout not just elementary school, but throughout life. And I think hearing, is it Naisha, is that right? She talked about she knew what questions she needed to ask and is already taking ownership of her own education. That is inspiring. So we are very excited to have you all working so hard in our district.
Thank you.
Mr. Nelms.
I just want to say thank you for the work that you do. And before you guys presented, I went up and I asked them, was they nervous? And most of the time, gives me an indication of how the students are going to respond, and they said no. But I want to say to you, Nair, I know your family. I practically raised your father. Wow. So I'm not surprised that your scores are as high as they are. Because I keep saying parental involvement is so key. So keep up the good work, all of you. And Warner Hills, 1, 2.
Wow.
Well, I have to give her, she's an honorary Warner Hill mother because she has all her kids with the Warner Hill. So you do great things, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now are going to be starting a presentation that's been specifically requested by the board. And in introduction to that presentation about our community learning centers, I want to thank Deb Alsop for bringing this to our attention. I want to thank Darlene Kamine. I want to thank Mrs. Dansby for also saying that this sort of thing needed to be talked about. And not surprisingly, Janet Walsh has a very, very interesting way to kick off this presentation. And we're going to be able to, I think, so fully appreciate the CPS family, both past and present and future. So, Mrs. Walsh, if you'll get us started, and I know we have also our own very own internal auditor who is going to come on down, I think.
Yes.
To be with our very
like
special guest tonight as we kick off what it really means to have great community and personal and family and staff support for our great school system. So as we await, we'll let you get started, Mrs. Walsh.
Great. Thank you very, very much. We have a two-parter for our Community Learning Centers presentation today. We know that community learning centers involve a lot of caring partner organizations, but contributions also come in the form of individuals. And today, to kick us off, we are going to feature one of them, Mrs. Louise Williams. She's a spunky, I wanted to say octogenarian, but that's not enough. She's actually a nonagenarian with deep, deep ties to Cincinnati Public Schools. And she is joined at the podium with her great niece, Chandra Brown, who is our own internal auditor, and Molly Lucan, who is the resource coordinator of Ethel M. Taylor. Now, The real star, of course, is Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Louise Williams, who's known affectionately in her family as Aunt Lady. She's always had a passion for education, and she had a recent birthday, February 4th. Is that correct? And we think she just might be the longest living teacher in this area. We know she's one of them. She is 97 years young, and she's still connecting with the students that she loves. She truly has a star-studded career in CPS. She was born, I believe, in Alabama, but moved to Cincinnati when she was about 9 years old. She had the good fortune to attend Stowe School when the legendary African-American educator Jenny D. Porter was there as principal. She was the first African-American woman to become a principal in Cincinnati. Mrs. Williams graduated, this is very condensed from her actual vitae. She graduated from Woodward High School in 1935, went on to attend Wilberforce, where she graduated in 1940. Later attended the University of Cincinnati, and she got her elementary education certificate. She started out as a kindergarten teacher at Dyer School in, I believe that was 1957. Then she moved to Millvale School, predecessor of Ethel M. Taylor, in 1959, and she stayed there until her retirement in 1982. But she didn't break those ties. She stayed in touch with the school, and she was actually at the last program at Millvale Primary and attended the groundbreaking for the new Ethel M. Taylor School. And to celebrate her 97th birthday, she's known in the family as being very proactive. She reached out to arrange a visit. And so now I'd like Molly to come up and, just give us a few highlights of that visit.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Both of you can.
Okay. She actually is the star and has the best to say about it. But I just wanted to say that thank you guys for having us. It's a privilege to be here, and it was even a bigger privilege to have Miss Williams come out. The students loved seeing her. She walked around to every classroom, and one student asked if there was any difference between when she taught and what she was seeing in the building. And as you can imagine, there were quite a few. And I even had one student say, Miss Molly, do they really not have computers? And I was like, yeah. She was like, weird. And I was like, I know, it's weird. But she's the star, so I'll let her come up and tell you about it. But we loved having her, and she's welcome anytime.
It's a privilege and an honor to be here this evening to see you, everybody. And I stay in touch by news. I read everything about the Cincinnati Board of Education. I try to keep abreast with what is going on and what is happening in the school system. And I wanted to see the new technologies and everything and what is happening in the school system today and whatnot. And if I can, and if I'm able, when I get 100 years old, I want to have a birthday party with all the students that I taught in the Cincinnati public school system, if I'm able. And if it's possible, this is what I want to do.
That's wonderful.
That's my goal. To be here this evening.
It's our privilege. We actually have a little something for you.
Thank you.
And we want to give you this button too that says, it says partnering for student success. You are a wonderful example of that.
Thank you.
You still have that teacher voice, you can project.
I was like, we're looking for tutors.
Rolanda and Chris have photos. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add that it's not in my duty as a single board member, but I would like to move that we make you an honorary member of the Cincinnati Public School Board. And I want to add again that you wearing that hat, Mama.
Well, this was a great start to a very wonderful presentation that's about to begin, and I also want to make sure that that whole family knows how much we appreciate having Chandra here as our internal auditor as well. I know she is a great partner for our treasurer, and she is keeping us all straight down the narrow and watches out for us, and she's been a great addition to our administrative staff and keeps us in line. So I do think, though, that everybody should have communicated to the board about the pink.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can turn pink, I think.
Maybe not. All right. Well, this is just great. And are we starting with Julie Doppler? Great. We have with us now, as we begin the next part of the CLC presentation, to help us get informed and ready to go, Julie Doppler, who is the director and coordinator, if you will, of our Community Learning Center programs and efforts. And frankly, thank you so much, because it's one of the areas where we lead the nation, and we appreciate your leadership.
Yes, thank you. And that is a very hard act to follow, but we'll do our best. It certainly embodies community learning centers in the spirit of giving and partnership that goes with CPS and our many, many community partners. So I extend my gratitude also to her. I wanted to start today as the CLC coordinator to give a little brief overview of the Community Learning Center. I am not here by myself today. In fact, I have the rowdy crowd in the back is with me. I have several people here today because the Cincinnati Community Learning Centers are about CPS, but not just about CPS. It is about the city, it is about the community, it's about our teachers, our families, our parents, it's about our community partners that you heard about in the Hayes presentation. So we're very excited today to touch upon this subject. We could be here for hours. We'll move as quickly as we can, but I'm very excited that we have several of the leaders and key stakeholders in this movement with us tonight. So I'm very happy about that. Very briefly, community learning centers are what has transformed our schoolhouses into a system of partnerships that are supporting our academic excellence. They bring social, recreational, educational, civic, and cultural opportunities to students and families. We say we have over 600 partners. To be honest, we stopped counting. Our partners have partners who have partners. So by the time you start, when we can actually quantify 600, but really we can't quantify the number of people, organizations, individuals, and groups groups that give to our schools. They bring some of the examples that are up there of the services and programs. As you all know, the Community Learning Center model has grown over time. It began with the facility master plan. Darlene Kamine was the leader and coordinator at that time and really helped to start this model in our district. The board was a key player in that by establishing not only a policy but partnership guidelines, and Darlene will talk about those in a minute. We had initial funder commitment of $1 million for over 5 years from United Way and Greater Cincinnati Foundation, which led us to the opportunity to hire full-time resource coordinators in our building. And they have been key to the development of the model, and they, of course, are the stakeholders in the ground at the site to make sure partnerships are developed and fostered at schools. We have experienced a lot of growth and expansion lately. We were able to use stimulus dollars to add additional resource coordinators. We have had 36 after-school grants in our district. We were able to use some of those to, with our partners to build capacity for resource coordination. We also had a strategic plan. A group of key stakeholders and funders met in 2008, 2009, suggested the building of a little bit more infrastructure around the model and to take a closer look at how we were doing. We also have Learning Partner Dashboard for data collection and analysis. When our stimulus funds ran out, we began using title funds in combination with grant funds to continue the growth of the model. We have had additional partner expansion through two very important partners you'll hear from tonight, Community Learning Center Institute and Families Forward, who provide resource coordinators to us. We codified our process, and of course, we have had a great deal of national attention and interest. As said by Marty Blank, Cincinnati is a model of efficiency and effectiveness, and many other school districts are coming to us. They want to replicate our model. So for tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about how we're doing. So right now, board policy is that all schools will become community learning centers. 36 of our 55 have resource coordinators. These resource coordinators come from 15 different community-based organizations. They are chosen by the site. 26 of them are funded through CPS with blended funding of Title I and grant awards, and you can see some of the grant sources that we've used to build out support for our model. 10 are funded by our partners, including Community Learning Center Institute and Families Forward. At the District for Support, we have a training committee which is based on the district, which is comprised of district personnel, but also of our community partners. We get together and plan training, coffee chats, formal and informal opportunities for the school district, our community partners, and our community to talk about educational initiatives and also to train resource coordinators. We have a data collection and full-time person from Strive Partnership who supports our use of data. And of course, this year we've had enhanced communication. We have a manual, which you've seen, a website, which I hope you've looked at, CLC, CincinnatiCLC.org. And of course, this year we launched the school year with our calendar. We also have an expanded focus in our community learning centers. We have early childhood connections that we are making very intentionally. 4Cs and Lisa Garofalo are working very hard with several of our schools to make sure that students coming to our schools have the resources and are ready and prepared to be successful in school. We have a new Choice Neighborhood Grant, which will provide the district the first opportunity to have an early childhood resource coordinator to figure out with us how to put resources on children before they enter our buildings to make them more successful, and an arts integration specialist who will build community arts lesson plans, integrating our curriculum with arts and music that can be delivered outside the school day. You'll hear a little bit later from one of our partners about our cutting-edge work with social emotional competencies. We have piloted a Devereaux skill strengths assessment pilot with our after school, and Paul LaBeouf, the author of that tool, has met with district leadership to figure out how we might expand that for use in our community learning centers. We are also looking at how to be career ready in elementary schools with our partners. On the evaluation, we have a local and national interest. Monica Mitchell will present briefly about what's going on locally and what she's learned, but we also have requests from Institute for Educational Leadership, Weichert Foundation, and the RAND Corporation to work with us in a more detailed evaluation. So that's a brief overview, but I want to hurry and get the important people up here. I would like to introduce first, we have presenters, but I would like to take a minute to first introduce Darlene Kamine. Darlene is the Executive Director of Community Learning Center Institute and really the founder initiator of the Community Learning Center model. We're very privileged that Darlene runs alongside of us with full force as we build out the Community Learning Center model in our district. Darlene? Is that the clicker?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with you this evening. I would first like to introduce Annie Bogenschutz, who is part of our Community Learning Center Institute team. Annie was the first resource coordinator in the district at Windsor School. She went on to become the resource coordinator at Ethel Taylor, which received the Coalition for Community Schools Award of Excellence for the Best Community Learning Center in 2011. Annie joined the Community Learning Center Institute in 2012 as the Director of Training and Development and works with our team of 7 resource coordinators. She is also part of a team working with Julie Doppler and the district to provide training and support for all of the CPS Community Learning Center resource coordinators. It was Annie's handiwork in preparing the award application that earned the district the 2013 Coalition of Community Schools Award of Excellence, the first given to a district-wide initiative. My name is Darlene Kamine. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Learning Center Institute, and I became involved in the development of community learning centers when I left the magistrate's bench in juvenile court in 1999 and was invited by former President Eileen Cooper Reed to join the Children's Defense Fund. I later became a consultant directly to CPS as part of the facilities master plan. CPS had asked the Children's Defense Fund to partner in the planning for the facilities master plan through a new approach with a new paradigm. Dr. Adamowski, then superintendent, and the late Governor Gilligan, who was then a new member of the Board of Education, understood that the building of new buildings would not by itself reverse the trend of declining enrollment and diminish public support. Unlike almost any other school district in the country faced with the urgencies of the challenges that faced us in the late 90s, this board did not just grab at another expensive academic reform package. After a year of community forums and learning expeditions that included parents, residents, and even the county coroner, the Board of Education created the vision and framework which is responsible for the transformation that is underway in our district and our city. The Board of Education's guiding principles for community learning centers passed in 2001 and reaffirmed by this board in 2009 with Board of Education Policy 7500 continues to provide the bedrock of our community learning centers and the reason that the Cincinnati model has become the national model. It is this board's unique approach that New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio called extraordinary in a press conference earlier this month, when he shared his plans to redevelop 100 New York City schools as community learning centers based on the Cincinnati model. As we review our progress and discuss our next steps, it is important to examine the 5 elements which have proven especially critical to our success and which we must be sure to safeguard and strengthen. First, this board is among the very few who understood the success of the school and the success of the community are inextricably linked. Students cannot be successful if their families and neighborhoods are not stable, safe, and vibrant. So the most visionary element of the board's policy is the redefinition of schools as the centers in the community, developed through the engagement of the whole community in the planning, implementation, and ongoing accountability. In the updated Board of Education Policy 7500, the board was even more explicit in the definition of the function of the school as center of community, responsive to the vision and needs of students, families, and community members before and after school, as well as during evenings and weekends year-round. So in a few words, the board changed the paradigm from the form and function of a traditional school building to a thriving community hub of partnerships, providing support, enrichment, and vitality, responsive to the unique vision of each school in its neighborhood, developed through an ongoing community engagement process. It is not a pathological, deficit-based set of wraparound services intended to remediate. It is the opportunity to create the kind of school to which every one of us would want to send our child, and the opportunity to leverage the public's investment in our public schools to create the kind of neighborhoods where we would choose to live and where our children and grandchildren will make their home in the future. From the first point, which sets out the transformational vision, the second point of this straightforward and elegantly constructed constitution for the CPS Community Learning Centers, the board next created the framework for implementation through site-based governance by the LSDMCs, which were already in existence and already charged with responsibility for their school's yearly strategic plan, or one plan. Through the representation of all of the school and neighborhood constituencies on the LSDMCs, parents, community, teachers, and administrators, there is ongoing community engagement. The LSDMC brings the careful, passionate, and focused attention to what is closest to them, their children, their neighborhood, their quality of life, which is impossible to achieve in a centralized system. In the updated policy 7500, the board spells out the responsibility of the LSDMC to select the partners, to evaluate the partners on an ongoing basis, and to terminate the partners if they fail to meet the expectations and goals of the one plan. Integrating the LSDMC's responsibility for the community learning center partnerships with the one plan reinforced the integration of the academic program and the partnerships. This policy made it clear that the school and the community learning center were not two separate things. The school is the community learning center, and that the conditions for learning must be in place both within and beyond the school day and school walls. In addition to the two building blocks set forth by the guiding principles, community engagement and site-based governance by the LSDMC, CPS also approved the parameters for partnerships to answer the first question that pops into mind when a great new initiative is announced: who will pay for it? To ensure long-term sustainability and to break the pattern of starts and stops in reaction to expired grants and budget shortfalls, CPS made it clear and plain: district dollars must be devoted to education, and all partnerships must be self-sustaining. This is the third important element, the strategy of leveraging the public investment in the building and the school's infrastructure with other public and private investment. In many cases, this required just the reallocation of existing dollars in a more coordinated and efficient way. To make the transition from decades of an uncoordinated mishmash of unaccountable programs with a spaghetti bowl of funding, including dollars from the district budget, we created an infrastructure to provide the capacity necessary to ensure that the LSDMCs would have real choice in the selection of quality partners who could meet the expectations of the Cincinnati CPS model, including financial self-sustainability. Early in our planning for the community learning centers, one of the former board members asked, how would we be sure that there would be an equitable allocation of resources across the district? She asked, would we ensure that each school community, even those later in the development, would have a genuine choice of quality partners? That question prompted the invention of these networks, which have been the backbone of the infrastructure for the partnerships. This is the fourth of the critical elements of the CPS Community Learning Center strategy, and we are told that it is unique in the nation. We call this infrastructure our partnership networks, which together comprise our cross-boundary leadership team. It is my understanding that you will be hearing a report from some of the partnership networks at future meetings, including Growing Well, our health partnership network, and MindPeace, our mental health network, which have made it possible to create what will be 24 school-based health centers and more than 50 mental health teams. Each of these networks is a collaborative of the agencies, programs, and resources that are committed to the CPS Community Learning Center model, including high standards, selection by the LSDMC, alignment with the one plan, shared accountability for the bottom line of the school and community, and a demonstrated ability to be financially self-sustaining. Through the tracking of our Community Learning Center Institute sites, the 7 sites where we have resource coordinators, we have estimated an average of at least $3 million per year in the value of the partnerships provided through this self-sustaining model, with much more at mature sites like Euler. And finally, the fifth but single most important element that makes all of the parts come together, the resource coordinator. This is just a couple of pages of one of what we call the organizational charts that show you how many partnerships these resource coordinators are responsible for, and you got some sense of that today. We had a notion that the resource coordinator would have to be part of the model for community learning centers, but it was not part of the original guiding principles, and we tried to get along without it as a distinct position, mostly because we couldn't figure out how we were going to pay for it. This was virtually the only new piece for which we had to find new dollars, as there was no resource coordinator already in existence. Resource coordinator agency, already in existence. In 2006, as Julie said a few moments ago, we received our first new dollars for resource coordinators from the United Way and the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. Their contributions were pooled together with funds from the 21st Century Grants, which were primarily intended for after-school programming, and that took care of our first 9 resource coordinators. As resource coordinators had made such a tremendous impact, it was clear that we had to add more resource coordinators, and CPS added Title I dollars. The Hale Foundation also came on board and is a committed donor to the pooled resource coordinator funds as well. In 2009, the Community Learning Center Institute was established to provide ongoing support for the growth and sustainability of the CPS community learning centers, and we now fully fund 7 resource coordinators separate from the CPS pooled funds. In addition, Families Forward has consistently raised funds to support 3 additional resource coordinators without dependence upon the CPS funds. After 8 years, we have gone from 9 to 36 resource coordinators with a total investment of approximately $2.5 million per year. Consistent with the original design of the model, each community learning center selects its own lead agency to provide a resource coordinator, and the LSDMC approves not only the agency but the specific person to be hired as the resource coordinator. And as Julie said a few moments ago, we have at least a dozen different community agencies serving as the lead agency for the 36 resource coordinators, as well as 2 that are employed directly by CPS. In about a month, April 8th to be exact, 2,000 people are expected from across the country and all over the world to arrive in Cincinnati to see and learn about our community learning centers, as Cincinnati has been chosen to host the Coalition for Community Schools National Forum. The constant media attention, including a year-long series on NPR's Marketplace and coverage by the New York Times, has confirmed our leadership in the field. But we know that we can't be complacent, as we have so much more to do to meet the vision that this board has held since 2001. Looking at where we are now with the 5 key elements necessary for success, we are grateful that the board has already undertaken the strengthening of the alignment and support for the LSDMCs to ensure the critical function of site-based governance and the ongoing engagement of the community. We are also pleased that the partnership networks and the cross-boundary leadership team are solid, and that each of our networks is supported by its own independent board and sustainable funding. Just this past year, we added 3 new networks with their own directors: the Children's Oral Health Network, which is part of Growing Well, and which was responsible for standing up our first dental clinic at Euler; the Early Childhood Network, which is working to ensure that each community learning center is an early childhood hub; and the Arts Network, which is providing after-school programming from dance to cheerleading to poetry. One of the 2 remaining areas which require our redoubled focus is the commitment to serve children, families, and the community beyond the school day and year-round. Just as the success of the school and the success of the neighborhood are intertwined, our children will not thrive in school if their families and neighborhoods are not thriving. Despite the energy and lift of all that is going on in Cincinnati, the poverty rate is still rising, and a shameful number of our children and families are still losing their homes and moving from couch to couch. While most children in middle-class homes are using computers almost before they can start to walk, about 20% of the families in many of our neighborhoods have computers and internet access in their homes. And their parents are unable to be in touch with the teachers or follow their child's progress through the online Power School program, which prevents the most basic parental involvement. Many of our neighborhoods don't have a recreation center or ball fields and green space, not to mention access to a grocery store, which makes it almost impossible to pursue the healthy eating and exercise that is necessary for wellness. We have started to address this with extended hours in the clinics and the hiring of family practitioners who can see all members of the family. We have a satellite of Findlay Market on the Roberts campus so that everyone in the community has access to fresh and healthy food. the International Welcome Center at Roberts, the refugee services being developed at the Academy of World Languages, the election of our resource coordinator at Mount Airy as the president of the Mount Airy Community Council. All of these are getting us closer to the vision of this board to recreate our schools as centers of the community. With the leadership of this board is reflected in the recent resolution to work more closely with the City Council to further leverage and share resources, the community learning centers can contribute significantly to improving the quality of life for all of us. And if families are thriving, if neighborhoods are thriving, our children will thrive. I believe that as a result of this board's leadership in the alliance with the City Council, we are already well on our way. So, the one and most urgent challenge to meet this board's vision set forth in Policy 7500 is how to ensure that each community learning center will have a resource coordinator. This would mean securing our current funding level long-term, ideally without dependence upon Title I funding, and raising the additional funds to add about 15 more for a total of approximately $3.5 million a year. We know that both the state and the federal government are impressed with our model, and Congress just appropriated $10 million for what they call full-service community schools, an appropriation that has not been funded since 2010. Local funders are also interested in working more closely with CPS to create a long-term sustainability plan. In an editorial which appeared in the Huffington Post last year, they wrote, "What has made the Cincinnati model work so well? Steve Means, who attended the study tour for the U.S. Department of Education, characterized the initiative as having restored the social compact. And indeed, Cincinnati has found a formula that weaves together the resources of many community partners, business, public, and private agencies, higher education, neighborhood, and faith-based groups to design interventions and opportunities that work in alignment with principals, teachers, other school staff, and community members to achieve shared goals. It is our CPS Board of Education that has provided the leadership that enables all of us to work together to restore the social compact, and we look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you very much. And Annie's available if there are any questions. Okay.
Thank you, Darlene. I'd now like to invite Bond Hill Academy up, Mr. Boggs and the Families Forward, and we have Mr. Boggs to introduce Families Forward. We also have a parent from Bond Hill Academy to speak.
Good evening.
Good evening.
President Bolton, fellow board members, Superintendent Ronan. My name is Tom Boggs, principal of Bond Hill Academy. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for our school, for Families Forward, a United Way agency, to be at our school. Each and every day, our students are faced with many academic and social challenges. By having Families Forward as a lead agency for the past 13 years, it has provided services that help students face life challenges in a positive manner by working with staff, student, families, and community. Family Forward uses a practical and integrated approach where school, home, and community are working together for the benefit of our students. Through this collaborative effort, it has allowed the staff to work collaboratively with Families Forward to improve our students' opportunity for success as lifelong learners. As a result, we're seeing an increase in the number of parents involved in our school and at school-related activities. Parents are becoming actively involved by attending parent-teacher conferences and parent workshops coordinated by the staff and the Families Forward Parent Center coordinator. More parents and community members are giving of their time and efforts as volunteers to make our school a center for academic learning. Families Forward has been very instrumental in helping our school become a community learning center that enables our children to achieve their fullest potential as students and productive citizens in this community. Families Forward works with families, students to help improve student achievement by providing a comprehensive parent center, home visits, counseling service, and after-school program, and resource coordination. Through resource coordination, our school is able to solicit partners based on needs to achieve our academic and social goals. It has allowed community businesses, civic organizations, and the Bond Hill community to become valuable stakeholders in our school. I would like to introduce members of this very important team, a team that is goal-oriented for the needs of our students, and a team working collaboratively with one goal in mind, to raise academic achievement to new levels at Bond Hill Academy. I'd like to introduce Ms. Deborah Alsop, Executive Director of Families Forward, Mr. Henry, our on-site coordinator, Mr. Lewis Smith, a parent volunteer, a Parent Leadership Institute graduate, and the coordinator of our Bond Hill Academy's Positive United Youth for Change program. And each of those persons will give an opportunity to share their stories as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boggs. I like seeing my name up on the big screen. I'm Deborah Mariner Alsop, and I was also part of that rowdy bunch back there that was cheering Hayes Porter on, because they're one of our partner schools also. I've had the privilege, members of the Board of Education, of being where you are some years ago, so I like to have fun. So if I'm a little bit irreverent, I know you need to wake up right now. So bear with me. But seriously, this is very, very important work, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about Families Forward in my own words and its evolution. Families Forward began in 1875 as the Ohio Humane Society. And before children were protected, animals were protected. So that's our legal incorporation. Around about 1920, we converted to looking at children, and we became the Children's Protective Society in conjunction with the Juvenile Protection Agency. And I want to give a little shout out to the United Way, because we're one of their 12 charter agencies, and they will celebrate their 100th anniversary next year, and we'll be a big part of that celebration.
Another rowdy.
In 1992, we made another switch because, as I said, we were a agency that was a contractor with the then Welfare Department, and the state laws changed, and the Welfare Department took its work back inside, and it created its own unit for children's services. And we were looking for a new home and a new mission, and the then president of Families Forward, Betty Hinton, and someone that's known to you named Julie Theodore, did a lot of national research and looked at different models and a way for us to continue to make big contributions in the community. So looking at Dr. James Coomer's model at Yale University, we said that we would be best served to switch our business to schools. And with the permission of the United Way, we took the United Way's invitation to be part of a demonstration project, and it was a 5-year demonstration project that was called the Family Resource Center Project. Families Forward was the only agency that was selected to work in schools, and with the support of Cincinnati Public, we began working in our first school in 1993, Hayes Elementary School, now Hayes Porter. And so for the next 5 years, all of our resources went into programming to try to demonstrate that prevention services helped children with their academic success. Hayes Porter, at some point along the way, went into redesign, and we were again able to kind of maneuver with United Way support to Parham School. Parham became Hoffman Parham, and now Evanston Academy. In 2000, we went to Bond Hill. And Mr. Boggs, I believe you were a teenager back then when we landed at Bond Hill. And in 2002, we went to Withrow University High School. Now, we're at all of these schools cumulatively, and our latest partner in 2009 was Carson School. And we ended up in Carson because there was a community agency that was working in the school that decided its mission and purpose really needed it to be more involved in the neighborhood. So we accepted the call, and we continued to serve 5 schools in total. Families Forward is about student and family engagement. And I think it's very important that the word family has been very prominent in our mission from the very beginning, except with the animals back in our early days, as we sought to prevent child abuse and neglect. One of the things that having said that we were a family resource center, we were very much in tune to what was going on with Cincinnati Public and the community learning centers. And around 2007, 2008, we were very amenable to working to convert and to adapt to the community learning center model. So our site managers, and Leslie, I believe you were a site manager at the time, we did a magic wand and he became a resource coordinator. We also had 2 other site managers that we did the magic wand with, but seriously, in talking with CPS and the leadership, we felt it was important for us to be collaborative. So we joined our resources, and I think as others have said, we fund 3 resource coordinators with the resources that Families Forward manages. I would like to switch a little bit to the schools that we're in and the kind of resources that we're putting into those schools. In our primary schools, we have a resource coordinator and an after-school coordinator, and our after-school coordinators and resource coordinators really help engage parents in student activities, workshops, etc. At our high school, we have at Withrow, we have 6 staff that we provide to Withrow. We have a resource coordinator, we have a college access coordinator, we have an after-school coordinator, we have a social worker, and we have 2 full-time tutors that are there for 6 bells. And one of the things that we do with our partner principals, we go in and we work with them and we ask them, what do you need? What do you need from Families Forward? So you may see different things in different schools, and it's because of the needs in the one plan and what the principal feels that we might be able to do to best serve the families in the school. One of the things that I would like to do now is to bring Leslie Henry on. He has been with Families Forward since 2002. So Leslie will talk to you a little bit more about partners, and he will introduce our superstar, Mr. Smith, who is our parent with us tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Families Forward is, since I've been there in 2002, it's always been about families. And what can we do to engage families? And each year is different. And we've always had to sit down as a staff and get creative and say, what does this year's parents need? What do they need this year? Let's look at last year's data. Let's look at who we know is coming to the school this year. What do we need to do? And that's what we've done over the years, is that we've responded to the actual needs of the parents. And over the years, we've tried to build relationships with those parents that have lasted a very long time. And not only that, but to encourage them to become leaders in the school. And over the years, we've had lots of parents that not only through the after-school program, which is one of our main functions, but through other workshops and programs, we've always made a way to tie them in to what was going on in the school. So whether they became volunteers themselves, whether they develop initiatives on their own, this is what we've encouraged them to do. And if you saw the previous slide, you saw many of the partners that we have at the school. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the academic support program. And then right after this, we can go to this next slide, the next one after that, please. Yes. This social emotional learning. This is a research-based program, and this is something that we have piloted for the last 2 years in the program. And what this is very important, I think, and something that is going to lead us into the future. And what this allows us to do is to look at students and look at their social emotional health. Once we look at their social emotional health, they're categorized into 3 areas. They're categorized as being in the need area, the typical area, or the strength area. And once we see what area they fall in, we can develop a program or set of initiatives to help the student become successful. So we've been piloting this for the last 2 years, and right now we're in the process of developing supports for these students that certainly need them. And before we do this, we certainly do get the parents' permission to move forward with this, and we're looking forward to great results. Again, I'll go back to Families Forward is all about families. So I'm going to introduce the star, Mr. Smith. And one thing I'll say about Mr. Smith this evening is that he does things the right way. He's a parent. He does things the right way. He went through the Parent Leadership Institute, learned how to become an effective parent, and that's exactly what he is. And the things that he is doing at the school right now, they're going to amaze you. I'm going to bring him up to discuss some of his work.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm a little tired. My kids wore me out. I am a proud parent, mentor, and tutor of 35 students at Bond Hill Academy. They're all my kids. I just call them all my kids. I had the pleasure of enrolling my daughter, who at the time was 9, at Bond Hill, and I ran into Miss Nettles. Quick story. Miss Nettles says, "Oh, Lois, why don't you go through the PLI program?" Okay, I'll see what it's all about. I've been here ever since, and I am proud of it. I work closely with Family Forward, follow the rules, do what needs to be done to improve the academics of our children. That's my main goal. I also had the unfortunate say I was retired. Oh yeah, now that was, I think I work at Bond Hill now. So I've already mentioned I need an office, so I enjoy it. Our goal, as I mentioned, my goal is to see that every child, our program is Bond Hill Academy, United Youth for Change. Our motto is Be the Change. It's a tutoring, mentoring program. It's a give back program. Our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, they tutor the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd graders. The 4th, 5th, and 6th graders get tutored from Family Forward's tutors. So it's a brick building. It's more, we're keeping it moving in circles. We're making a change within themselves. That way they're getting everything that they need to say, okay, I'm going to the 6th grade. The tutors in Family Forward help them do that. How about 1st grader says, I'm going to the 2nd grade. The 4th, 5th, or 6th grader helps them do that. So it's a give back program. We have a 1st grader in our program now, since school started, has had straight A's. And Today she made it her point to bring me her report card, her midterm. So I owe her lunch. And like I said, I'm a proud parent I have an 11-year-old, and she's actually my first student in the program, and she'll be the last. But our goal is to make sure that our students get a great academic education and have them go from the 6th grade on into high school knowing that we can do this. I made the change. Thank you.
Thank you.
When I began to think about us becoming a community learning center, one of our visions was to become a world-class community learning center. And through the partnerships that we have, our goal is to continue to make that vision come to life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bond Hill Academy. Now I want to bring forward our two last presenters here. First, Patty Nagelkirk. Patty's the Director of Community Impact for United Way. United Way has been at the table with us since we began, giving generously to us not only the initial investment, but reinvested in us a few years ago. But I'm bringing Patty here tonight not just because she's a funder, because she is a funder, but she is deeper and more involved with this work. We live kind of side by side. Recently, Patty has stepped up to help us lead the After-School Advisory Council for our community learning centers, and she is instrumental in bringing the DESA that you've heard so much about today. So Patty's going to do a very brief, very quick, because time is going, overview of the DESA and just give you a few highlights about where we're going.
So hi there. I was here 2 weeks ago and didn't realize I was coming back. And so when I talked to some of my co-presenters, I said the board already had the opportunity to hear some of United Way's contributions. And I'm going to promise you, I'm going to do this in about 45 seconds because you've had fantastic presentations, but it is long. And so actually the colleagues before me already gave you a snapshot of why I'm here. We knew how important social and emotional competence is to academics, lifelong learning, and one of the things that your after-school providers have been doing is piloting something called the Devereaux Student Strengths Assessments. And there are 4 of you, I believe, who have registered to show up to a meeting tomorrow at 1:30 to 3. Right, so I am thrilled that you're there because you've had 4 principals, you've had various members of the school board and multiple partners who have found great promise in a tool. And when you come tomorrow, you're going to hear a lot of information. And if you can't come tomorrow, we'll find some other way to give you a deeper dive. But all I'm going to show you is a couple slides of data just to give you a sense of what this tool will do. In your after-school programs, there are about 19 programs who are able to use the DESA Mini. It's a screen. It's looking for social-emotional competence that is going to be predictive of academic success. This 1,000 number doesn't tell you how many kids are in your after-school programs. It just happens to tell you the number of kids who had a DESA Mini last fall. This just shows you a breakdown of grades, male and female. The tool itself only goes up K to 8. We picked the tool, however, because there are very few research-based tools that actually go down to kindergarten. A whole lot of them start at 5th grade, and so we were pretty thrilled at this one. And you can do the screen in about 2 minutes. And it was very cheap, and the authors were helping us work through it. And you already heard some eloquent testimony from Families Forward. You also already heard from Mr. Henry about how it's categorized by strength, typical, and need. What you should know is the national norms are about 16% of the population is likely to be considered in the strength category. About 2/3 of kids fall in typical, and about 16% of kids across the population typically fall under need for instruction. Your kids who are in the need for instruction range are the ones where we're typically thinking about prevention. This could be a sign of academic problems down the road, could be a sign of some behavioral problems, and we've seen in places across the country it can be a very good prevention screen. Once you do the DESA Mini, you can do a full DESA if you want. We're not piloting that right now, but you'll hear more about that tomorrow. In your after-school programs, we were pretty thrilled to see how many kids fell in the strength category. We noticed that, wow, we had a lot more males who were in the needs, but that rings true with a whole lot of research that you know. We're not making great analytics at this point. This, again, was just a snapshot. So don't make any interpretations based on this other than to know you've got some after-school programs who are piloting this, and we want to learn from it. Here's another one that shows you a similar breakdown by age and grade, and if we had more time, I would elaborate, but I'm going to pause and just tell you how grateful we are, along with your other 600 partners, to be part of this work for community learning centers and for your leadership. And so if there's something that I can provide, although I'm not going to come back in 2 weeks and give you another presentation, so thank you for your support.
Thank you.
And now we have Dr. Monica Mitchell to tell you very briefly about some of the findings in the evaluation of community learning centers.
Okay, good evening. I'm pleased to be here this evening. I'm an evaluator for Cincinnati Public Schools and have been for 10 years. I'm also the co-director of innovations at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And I'm going to keep my presentation very brief. I want to get you guys very excited about the 4 slides that I'm going to present, because usually when you say evaluator, people kind of zone out. So you got a clicker? Okay. Okay, so some of this has already been said. I just want to say that in addition to some of the programmatic things that you've heard, we do have a model for ensuring quality improvement and monitoring, and it's called the REFORM model, and you can see there what the acronym stands for. So everything from reviewing the data, I'll talk a little bit about that, to measuring impact. We use Learning Partner Dashboard, and I may mention that briefly as well, but you probably have heard about that as well. So I'm just going to talk about some highlights. What we know from how we measure data through the Learning Partner Dashboard, which is the tool that resource coordinators use to log the information on the students who are served in community learning centers, is that we have almost 18,000 students who are served through services. And this could be everything from tutoring, which you heard about, to mentoring services, that long list that Julie presented at the beginning. And many of these are health services. So that's what inflates the number a little bit. So students who are going through our health clinics for different services. But that's a lot of students. And this is part of the reason why many different school districts come to us and say, wow, not only are you providing good services, but you know how to measure it. We also have students who are targeted for services. And this was really something that a way that we improved our model over time, because we learned we got better at figuring out which students were at highest risk or had the highest needs. So we have a very strengths-based model, which is very good, because we want to have many activities that all students can participate in, but it's also very important to know which students really need the tutoring, which students really can benefit greatest from the mentoring, and that's how you get to outcomes. You can see there the number of parents who attended a parent-teacher conference, and Julie already referenced the many community partners who make this model what it is. This is a graph that really talks about how we target students, and we really don't refer to needs, we refer to priorities. So how do we prioritize students? And when we first started tracking this data, the percents were much lower because we didn't really have a systematic way to identify students who really needed services. But you can see now, anywhere between around 75% to over 90% of students who really have those priorities, meaning that a student didn't pass the OAA or didn't pass the OGT, or they're having chronic absenteeism, we're able to identify those students and make sure that those are the students who we're matching to the services, the community learning center services. And this is really what resource coordinators look for, and they have the databases that allow them to do that. So they can actually flag, and it's like a color-coded system, and if a student's red, they know that those are students who need to be on those after-school programs or need to get those mentoring students first. So this is really a great graph that shows that. And like I said, when we first started looking at these percents, the percents were between 30 to 50%, and now you can see how high these percents are from the previous year. This is a graph where we look at whether or not students are making gains, and you can see across all of our key services here, which are the tutoring, mentoring, college access, family engagement, we're seeing gains in both reading, which is in blue, and math, which is in orange. And then this is my last slide, which just briefly mentions some of the things that I put in my report about, what are we seeing, what are the gains that we're seeing both programmatically and also in terms of the data trends, and what are some of the next steps. And I'll just emphasize some things that my co-presenters already said, which is the biggest gains that we see, which we're proud of, is that we're seeing changes relative to tutoring and mentoring. That's where we see the academic gains, because that's usually the biggest question that we see. And we've seen those trends. I've been the evaluator since the inception of community learning centers, but since we've been tracking this data, that's where we see the academic gains. But where the opportunities are, I think, where I put in the next steps are to look more holistically at our students and think about, health, social emotional needs, and school readiness, so that we can really have a fuller picture of the impact that we're making through our community learning centers. And then going back to Darlene's earlier point is making sure that we can ensure sustainability for our community learning centers and also our resource coordinators, so that we can go from 36 schools, hopefully, to all of our schools, having community learning centers in all of our schools. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to wrap up tonight, I have the most important speaker, the most important beneficiary of our community learning centers, and why we do the work we do. So I'm going to bring up Ashanti Dawson, the resource coordinator at Chase School, and she's going to introduce our final wrap-up speaker.
Hello and good evening. I'm Ashanti Dawson. I am the resource coordinator at Chase School. I'll just take a brief few minutes just to kind of introduce to you about the after-school program that we have at Chase Elementary. As many of you may know, there are many lead agencies in the after-school network that provide after-school care, such as Amani, Families Forward, Urban League, YMCA, and many other great organizations. I represent the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Cincinnati, which is one of 5 locations housed within CPS. The Boys and Girls Club at Chase is one of many partners that is housed within the school walls and assists in supporting the needs of our children and families in Northside. For the last 3 years, I have held a dual role as a resource coordinator and a site coordinator due to decreased funding in 21st Century Grant dollars. Serving in such a capacity has been very challenging, with the increased duties, long days, and overwhelming amounts of stress. Through this experience, I can attest to you that this is not a long-term fix to decrease funding. Last school year concluded the end of our 5-year grant with 21st Century, and this year we currently operate on donated funds through Boys and Girls Club of Greater Cincinnati and small grants from partners such as GE, Northside Education Committee, and community donors. Although the funds from the 21st Century Grant are gone and we are only able to serve a smaller portion of students, the program quality is still there. The after-school program is just an extension of the school day, where after-school staff work very closely with the staff of the school to assist students with their academic needs. Students are able to receive quality academic assistance from qualified staff and tutors. There are competitive sports available, community engagement projects, field trips, and a variety of programs designed to get our students and families a step closer to success. While I can talk to you at length about the after-school program and its benefits, I would like for you to hear from a very prominent example of how the after-school program has played an integral part in the success of one of our students. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce to you a long-term program participant, Ms. Kiara Thompson.
Good evening. My name is Kiara Thompson. I am in the 6th grade at Chase Elementary. For the past 3 years, I have been a part of the Boys and Girls Club at Chase. The Boys and Girls Club offers a safe place for me after school. They have taken me on field trips to colleges such as NKU and Cincinnati State. The Boys and Girls Club have also helped me through homework and tutoring. If it wasn't for the Boys and Girls Club at Chase, I would probably get in trouble a lot and not having a support system. The support system that I have is huge. I have my family, my Chase school teachers, and my teachers at the Boys and Girls Club. The support system helped me pass the Wanna Hills test. I am proud to say that I'll be a Golden Eagle next year. My future plans are to go to college at NKU to study to become a veterinarian.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. We worked through a very long presentation. Thank you.
Before you leave, I know we may have some questions or some comments for folks to come back, but I know that one of our great, we are so proud of this system and so proud of this initiative and so proud of how you've all been able to sustain it. And I know that our board policy requires and should require that all schools be indeed community learning centers, and hopefully somehow all of them have resource coordinators. And I do know that at the beginning of this topic, as it was part of what the board talked about, was this sustainability issue as well as the expansion issue. And I just wanted to know if the board members needed to have any further clarification, or if there's an action plan for us, or if there's a group, superintendent, that can be convened to try to start to figure out how that can happen so that we can live up to our policy or what have you. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I know that was the initial concern, was sustainability and expansion.
Well, as was mentioned by our resource coordinator at Chase, the 21st century grants are being phased out, but that's the 21st century after-school programming, but then there's also resource coordinators during the day. Now they're funded, but the after-school programming piece, we've just been so fortunate all these years to have had all these grants, but my understanding is we're allowed to reapply, I believe, for 5, and I'll have to ask Julie Doppler, and a number of our partners are also going to reapply. So hopefully we will be able to reinstate some of the after-school programming that's really needed in our schools. But right now, Julie, would you give us an idea? I believe we can apply for 5. We have, I think, Families Forward's going to apply for several.
Yes, we are applying for 3 through Cincinnati Public and 3 in partnership with the ABC Foundation. We've encouraged all of our community partners to apply where they are embedded in schools so that we can make sure that every school in the district has a chance to receive the new grant funding. That aside, we will do what we can to continue to build partnerships, continue to explore. We're exploring with Cincinnati Recreation Commission. We have our first satellite program in a building. So we're doing the best we can to make sure that after school stays open because it's integral to the community learning centers.
But Julie, to make it clear, the 36 resource coordinators during the day, we have the funding for that.
We have the funding for that through our title and blended grant funds that we have received.
How does that relate to your summer initiatives as well? Because I know some of those resource coordinators in the after school also did summer.
Right, the 21st Century helped build out the rest of the day for our summer learning initiative. We have some Wallace dollars. They're limited though. Wallace Foundation gives us dollars for enrichment, which we use as best we can to spread across the district. But we are dependent on the 21st Century to build the enrichment part of the full day of summer. And again, we are reaching out to the community. We're looking where we can open our buildings, bring in already funded programs for summer learning, and try to make as many connections as we can. But our hope is that we continue. We have had 36 21st Century grants, and we're hoping we continue to get them over the next few years.
Mr. Benera?
I think Mr. Cool was first. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to say, first of all, thank you, Kiara and Ms. Ashanti, for coming and representing Northside, my home neighborhood. When I first was running for the board, she was my boss, and she was one of my students. So it's great to see them here tonight. Also wanted to follow up along the sustainability topic. I heard a rumor that from Denise Driehaus that there might be some legislation in the state that's pushing to find more funding for community learning centers. Do you know anything about this? Or?
I believe Darlene mentioned that, so I'll let her address it. But yes, there is a grant funding available.
Sorry if I missed it, Darlene.
I'm glad you brought it up. There is legislation that is supposed to be introduced that would include basically the Cincinnati model of community learning center in legislation having to do with school improvement. So it would be one of the models that would be able to be selected if a school is going through some kind of school improvement. It is not exclusive to school improvement status, so it also encourages all districts to go in that direction. At this moment, that legislation doesn't include funding, but I do believe, exactly as you've raised, that with that kind of momentum and together with what's going on the federal level, that we're very encouraged that that would be available. I think across the country, everybody recognizes this is the way to go.
Yeah. Well, let us know how we can help push that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Write a letter to your state legislator.
Okay.
Mr. Madera.
Well, first of all, thanks to all the presenters. That was just amazing. Just a little testimony is that's how I ended up here. I was just a community leader trying to get involved as much as I could, and just started more and more in love, falling in love with the students and the community, and passionate through community learning centers. So thank you so much for supporting that movement, because it could get some of our parents and community activists up to the board where they can make more decisions and more of an impact. I do have a question. I know as we consider sustainability and the economics of it, there's a lot of factors on that, but do all of our resource coordinators share the same data so that they can specifically address the needs of students, or are there some limitations with software or data that they can't access if they belong to one agency and not the other?
No, Learning Partner Dashboard is open to all of our resource coordinators. What it requires is that we do have a memo of understanding with their lead agency. And then any other partners, though, that come to our school, they do have to have parent permission to share data. But resource coordinators, acting as agents of the school, do have academic behavior attendance data available to them. And as Dr. Mitchell pointed out, is that that's how they really can prioritize some of the services and make sure students get what they need via the data.
And if there is, just to follow up on that, so if there is some data that they're missing, there are pathways to maybe get a hold of you and say, hey, I really need this data, but it's not available where I'm looking at. There's support for them as well?
Yes, we have a full-time person who, from Strive Partnership, who works with LPD, supports LPD, and I know she meets with 4 or 5 resource coordinators a couple of times a week and just really works with them with using the system.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
One more. Just so that the community is aware, Ms. Ashanti, is she still here? I mean, I've worked with her and the interaction that she has with the students there at Chase School, and I mean, just a phenomenal person whose heart is really, really in the right place. So you're awesome with that. And then did Mr. Lewis leave? I don't remember. Oh, yeah. So I met Mr. Lewis like doing community work probably 8 years ago, and so during campaigning, I ran into him at the Bond Hill Academy on a Saturday, and it would have had to be, I don't know, a year or so ago, and he was just so excited about the program. So these are real life, folks who, you guys didn't just bring them here because they had a good story, but I know them personally, and they've done an awesome, awesome job, so.
Yeah, and I think they're representative of so many more.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the critical piece, both the funders and the resource coordinators and the community volunteers and those folks. It's let's face it, this is what it's all about.
Yeah,
so
the other thing is
just
really, I don't know what the sustainability is absolutely going to look like. We rely on our community partners, and there's so many of them and so many unique ways to utilize them. But I think as we move forward, there absolutely has to be more, just organization around that. We can't just wait to see what the state legislation is going to be, what the community partners are going to do. So if we were to convene some sort of task group or just a group to kind of keep their eye on it, if you will, I'd be happy to help support that. Our community learning centers as a national model, a regional model, I mean, you all should just really be commended for your hard work. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, and we will certainly follow up because that after-school piece is so critical for our youngsters, and we are very worried that it's lost funding and being phased out.
Yeah, I'm very, very concerned about the after-school piece, especially with some of the local nonprofits who just absolutely don't have the funding, and I'm concerned that they're taking their eye away from it, and we all know how vital that is.
I would also add the sustainability piece, the expansion piece, and very difficult to focus on that, but it is board policy, and it is someplace I know a number of boards have aimed, and that is our target. So sustainability and deepening and what have you, what we have, but also continuing to expand what we have. Thank you again for a wonderful presentation. We appreciate the efforts. Let's see, we are now at the part of our meeting that we have announcements and kudos. Mr. Nelms, do you have any kudos?
I have one major kudos, and this is in honor of our honorary board member to highlight and celebrate tonight, Mama Louise Williams, for her over 35 years of service and living 97 years. And I just want to say kudos to her and thank her for her longstanding commitment to our district.
Thank you, Mr. Nelms. And Mrs. Bates, do you have any retirements for this evening?
Yes, we have one staff member that I'd like to honor who is retired or will be retiring on March the 1st, Stephen H. Mason. He's a teacher at SCPA.
Great, thank you very much. And now we're at the portion of our meeting for hearing of the public. We have just one member of the public that is going to be speaking, and I hope I pronounced the first name correctly. Ayana Greer. Ms. Greer. Ayana, okay, thank you. It's beautiful.
My name is Ayana Greer. I'm a single parent of 3 boys. 2 are in Cincinnati Public School. 1 is not, 18, 11, and 6. And tonight I'm here about my 6-year-old who was a student at World Language Academy. On April the 17th, my son was sent home on a 3-day removal and never allowed to return back to school. He's only a kindergartner. And I looked at the removal policy, and emergency removal is only supposed to be 3 days. After the 17th, on the 19th, I received a letter from staff members here, I think Cynthia Dixon, saying that I'm not allowed on school property, so I was never called from the principal, from the Board of Education, no one to sit down and meet with me. Instead, I was sent a letter to not come back up to AWL. I did not pick my son up that day, my mother did, and I sent questions out on October the 10th, 2013, via email to the lawyer here. I gave y'all copies of the questions.
We have that.
And then I dropped them off October the 17th. Me and her have met maybe once or twice. My questions are not being addressed. Zaire got an IEP on 11/6/13 where he was required to have a Velcro. It is now February the 24th, no Velcro. He's still attending school. I tried to take him back to World Language Academy the first day of school. They would not allow him back. The principal would not allow him to come back. So I had to send him to the neighborhood school where he's doing fine. He hasn't been removed. He's gotten in trouble, but there's been no removal. And I just wanted to know why, when the code say a child is only supposed to be removed for 3 days, why a kindergartner was allowed to be kept home for 40 days and made to repeat the kindergarten.
I know we appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and I know the superintendent is going to address it. Mrs. Ronan?
Certainly, we'll follow up. Where's your child now?
He's at John P. Parker.
Okay. I will have the appropriate staff call you from special education and also the assistant superintendent, and we'll follow up.
Can I just say that I've been dealing with Mr. Mouse since...
We have to be careful regarding personnel, so it would be better not to use any names.
I've been dealing with staff, and I don't understand once I contact staff why he wasn't allowed. I know she said she was going to contact me, but also someone from the trustee called me, and we had a discussion, and I just feel like they wasn't helpful either about the situation. They didn't call me back. There was no offer of help for my son. And I just wanted to find out why he was able to stay home when legally he's only allowed to stay home for 3 days.
Well, yeah, Mrs. Greer, we're really sorry this has happened. Have you dealt with like Dr. Jameson in our special education department?
Yes, I've dealt with everyone. I have emails, I have texts, I have audio. I even deal with a lawyer, and Zaire was still never placed back in school.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming tonight, and the superintendent will follow up.
We will follow up.
And I just want to say, I came last time, but I'm a full-time student. I'm in college, and I was like 5 minutes late, so I didn't get a chance to come. But I just wanted y'all to let y'all know how important it is. I'm not just here for Zaire. I'm here for any other student that have behavioral issues, so they won't be kept home either, because it didn't benefit him to stay home for 40 days. It actually hindered him.
Ms. Greer, if you're late again, if you could send an email over to the superintendent, she'll be happy to address.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And now we're at the part of the meeting where we have resolutions, and we have, let's see, this first resolution was again reviewed at this evening's policy committee meeting. Please see any recommended revisions or changes that may have occurred. And we are going to take a motion to consider this resolution. And I believe that Mrs. Hoffman is presenting.
48-hour waiver?
I don't think for this one.
Oh, okay, even though it wasn't posted.
It's been on. Okay. The next one has to. Thank you, though, for reminding me.
Yep, so I submit the resolution amending board policy 9142, community involvement.
Second. Is there a second? Mr. Coons, thank you. Is there discussion or comment? I know we have some interested parties still up in the peanut gallery waiting and watching for this. I know it's even been referenced in the CLC presentation tonight regarding the importance of this infrastructure. Any comments by the board or any discussion?
Well, only thing I would like to say is that we discussed this in policy, and there was a lot of effort and time given to making sure that the language was as such that everyone not only was satisfied, but it spoke to the needs of our LSDMC as well as staff and as well as others involved. And so there's a lot of that work, and I want to thank Ms. Harper for taking the lead on this and making sure that it was fine-tuned to present tonight.
I think just one thing on page 2 of 4, we just wanted to make sure that that first sentence per board policy, pound, 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 that is removed from this before we vote on it. I think that was the only change that didn't get in here.
We also want to thank the folks in the FACET committee and the subcommittee of FACET. This is a shining example of how that whole system works. Even though it's not mandated any longer by the state, we found that it was useful and helpful. And indeed, it gives a lot of credibility to the work that's done, and it makes it easier on all of us as well, that a lot of that legwork was done. If there are no other comments or questions, Mr. Coons.
Along the lines of Ms. Hoffman's last comment, we are revising it so that that will not be included, but the conversation will still continue, I hope.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
We'd like that sentence taken out because we don't have that board policy yet, but we'd like to, as Mr. Nelms knows, that's going to be part of the policy committee discussion.
Okay, and just to make sure of that, perhaps we can make an official assignment today at the, when we get to the assignment portion of the meeting, so that we know that that proceeds per Mr. Coons' concern. Let's do roll call.
Mrs. Bates.
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby.
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Coons.
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Manera.
Aye.
Mr. Nelms.
Aye.
President Bolton.
Aye. For the next resolution, we do need a 48-hour waiver. Could I have a motion for that 48-hour waiver? Thank you, Mrs. Bates. Do I have a second for the 48? Mrs. Hoffman, a second. Thank you very much. We have a resolution regarding entering into an agreement regarding the Walnut Hills Alumni Foundation, and what board member would like to present that resolution? Mrs. Bates, I was expecting nothing less.
Of course. I have a resolution to enter into a lease with Walnut Hills Alumni Foundation. I present this resolution as printed.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I second.
A third.
Okay, we didn't do the 48-hour vote. We have it introduced, we have a 48-hour waiver vote, we're going to vote twice to expedite the matter.
Yes.
So 2 ayes when the name's called. Go ahead, do the 48-hour waiver.
Okay, Mrs. Bates? Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Manera? Aye. Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
President Bolton?
Aye. Do you want to do it a second time? Although I love the aye. We could really move things quickly.
Who seconded the Walnut, please?
The second, we had motioned for it.
You did, thank you.
Mrs. Dansby did.
Call
Hit it.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby? Aye. Mrs. Hoffman? Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
President Bolton?
Aye. Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Ronan, would you please present your report?
Yes, and yes, I was going to say also the superintendent's recommendations are revised. However, my report is actually requesting that the board start the discussion about putting the $65 million renewal levy on the ballot this November of 14. This renewal represents over 15% of our current operating budget, and every aspect of the district operation would be impacted if it were not to be renewed. It will not raise taxes. It is our district is funded on 5-year emergency renewal levies. This particular levy was passed and approved by the voters in 2009, and now it is coming back up because they're 5-year emergency levies, but they're a vital part of the funding of the district. The treasurer was very kind, gave me graph that shows when that emergency levy is phased out, the huge drop in revenue that we will have. So we are hoping that we could get the resolution approved by the board this spring so that we have time to actually work on going out to the community, explaining the need for this emergency 5-year renewal that does not raise taxes.
Thank you for that report, and I know that there is a great sense by the board to, regardless of what the decision is, to act early on this decision. So I would hope that we can start the dialogue and expedite the dialogue and make sure that we are ready to address what needs to be addressed. So thank you for your recommendation, as well as the treasurer's recommendation, that indeed we vote in favor of such a thing.
Yes, it is both our recommendations.
We can all talk about when we can put it on the agenda for a vote, but I think it's obviously a great need, and I believe there's consensus about doing it as early as we can and not waiting till July or August or what have you, which we've done before. And now, do I have a motion to accept the recommendations of the superintendent?
So moved.
Revised recommendations.
Revised, thank you, Mr. Coons. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mrs. Bates. Any questions or comments for the superintendent regarding her recommendations? Roll call.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman? Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Manera? Aye. Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
President Bolton?
Aye. Do I have a motion to accept the report and approve the report of the treasurer?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Nelms. Is there a second?
A second.
Mrs. Dansby, okay. Any questions or comments for Treasurer Witt? Mr. Nelms?
I think I lost it.
Okay, we'll come back.
We'll come back. No, item 17A. Can you kind of elaborate on what that entails? Performance construction. It gives an explanation at the bottom, but is there anything beyond the explanation?
You're saying classroom facilities?
Yes, and actually, I was looking for our architect, Robin Brandon, because I do not have the details on this, but I can follow up and get the details. I don't know, other than it being brick restoration, I have no other detail.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments for the treasurer? I'm going to start looking left first and then right. Let's roll call and roll.
Mrs. Bates. Aye. Mrs. Copeland Dansby. Mrs. Hoffman. Aye. Mr. Coons.
Aye.
Mr. Manero.
Aye.
Mr. Nelms.
Aye.
President Bolton.
Aye. And now we go to the portion of the meeting regarding inquiries and updates. One thing I would like to mention, and there's one thing on the agenda there, but before we get to that, I just want to remind the board of the March 3rd, 6 p.m. joint working group with council members, or exactly, I think it's the Education and Entrepreneurship Committee. And we talked to the superintendent again today about the folks from administration that would need to be there, as well as some of the sample questions that we can anticipate from the city council members. And certainly board members, if you have particular questions that you want our folks to address, it would be great to kind of put some of those forward to the superintendent so she might be able to share, so that our people come in as prepared as they possibly can be to answer some of those questions. I mean, it's going to be freewheeling, but at least there's some issues, and we know that most specifically it's the police chief, and it's certainly our security director, and then also the whole issue regarding recreation and what have you, and facilities, and then also the ask that the superintendent's already done, which is to have the recreation department help us out with our summer program. March 3rd, 6 p.m., I believe council chambers, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
And then the next meeting would be held here, so we'll just rotate that. So now the board protocol is on this agenda item.
Yeah, that was my item, and I wanted to just, as we move forward with just the transition in plethora, I learned that word 3 weeks ago, plethora of things that's going to be coming down the pike, that we be mindful of protocol as it relates to how we govern ourselves and how we operate. So I would just encourage each and every one of you board members, as well as administration, to just review that, keep it on the forefront, and so that we can walk and work in, I say, good standing for what we're required to do.
That's great. And at any particular time, too, the board can convene a subgroup or an ad hoc group to review that protocol or revise it. We've all lived through some revisions if we've been on the board for a while. So it's a great guiding post for us. Any other questions before we move to assignments?
I have a question about other business and just moving forward as a part of the protocol, making sure that we list other business and solicit items for that as the agenda is being written. And I do have a question for Ms. Ronan related to calamity days, and if you could just give the public an update related to any changes.
Good question.
Well, we use 7 calamity days. We are allowed 5. So we made up the 6th day by canceling the professional development day. And after the board approved the blizzard bags at the last board meeting 2 weeks ago, we immediately sent that request with the resolution, the letter from the CFT president, and we filled out all the paperwork. At this time, we have not heard back from the state whether or not our request has been approved to use a blizzard bag. So the minute we get it back, we will let everyone know. In the meantime, we have directed the staff on StaffNet to put lesson plans for the teachers that they can use, or they can certainly send home their own work with youngsters. So we have all of that ready to go in the interim, but we are waiting for ODE approval. My understanding, part of the tie-up is, I believe they were introducing legislation. I think the governor wanted to give 4 more days, but then some of the legislators said, you can have the 4 days after you've made up 5 days. So I think because of all of that, I'm guessing that maybe that's why we haven't gotten our approval yet from ODE. So that's where it stands. I think it's the confusion in deciding, and I think there's two separate bills that say separate things that have been introduced.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I read some of that and had a couple questions, so I wanted you to
It's very confusing. You'll get 4 days after you've made up 5 days.
Right, so thank you very much.
Any other questions that we have now? We move to the assignment portion of the meeting. Did you want to make that assignment? You want to make that assignment? Go for
sure.
it. Somebody do it.
Assigned to policy committee that we look into establishing a policy around requiring a parent organization at every school.
Great, that's a good idea. And then the one that I would make, it's just pro forma, because I know Ms. Davis has sent out to all of us the legislative agenda regarding OSBA, and what is the custom is for the chairs of the standing committees to kind of divide that booklet up, and within the standing committees, please look and see what kinds of things you would be approving or what you would add to that agenda. That's what they'd like, and it usually is several weeks that we have to do it, at least one rotation of another meeting, I think, through March, and maybe even a little bit later. But if the chairs of the various committees will divide that booklet up and have their committees, respective committees, look into it, that would be great. Any other items before us? We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Alex.